once your students get more familiar both with Book Creator and with this idea of coding as a language, or maybe even if you're looking for an activity to jump into with upper middle school and high school students, another way to approach the idea of Computer Science Ed Week in the classroom is to use Book Creator and to think of coding a lot like digital storytelling. So a research study from two people at the University of Pennsylvania in the Graduate School of Education from 2012, it's Burke and Caffey, I hope I pronounced that correctly, talk about this idea of coding as storytelling. And if you think about the writing process, and they start with something that's fairly familiar, there's a protagonist and an antagonist, you go through some pre-writing, some drafting, some revising, there's some type of character motivation, and eventually you pull together this story. Well, with coding, a lot of times there's the idea of sprites. Sprites are the characters that might move around a screen. So if you've seen something like Scratch or Squeak, you create these little characters called sprites. There's the whole design process. How is your application and your code actually going to work? Much like you would revise an essay, you then debug your code. You make sure everything works correct. And then where you might focus on, what really motivates the characters when you're writing a story with, coding an application or a program, there's a set of parameters. Are you designing this to work on an iOS device? Are you designing this to work on the web? Those kinds of things create these coding parameters. So if we take this idea, one way to then think about it with Book Creator, we can set the coding parameters as whatever's possible inside this app, but then we can think of it much like a potential choose your own adventure story. So imagine if we were to have our students code a choose your own adventure story in Book Creator. And if we use just a basic story spine, one like you would find, pretty much anywhere, once upon a time might be your first page, you'd have a starting point, something introduces a story. This could also work from a historical perspective. Maybe we decide we want to create an alternative event in history. Every day or on this day, something happened, but then you start branching. So you'll notice where, option A happens or option B happens. And then the story gets going, and you might have your students build out the logic for as many different branches as they might choose. And it could get very sophisticated. And then once you have this, inside Book Creator, remember that text can become hyperlinks, objects can become hyperlinks. Just as a few examples, I'll get a blank page. So I'm just going to use text this time. One of my favorite tricks when I'm looking for photos, because I honestly don't really have any on this iPad, is if I go to add text and I use an emoji. So let's say that I'm going to add a turkey because it was recently Thanksgiving here, and I say done. So now I have a turkey, and let's add another one in. Let's say add text and a caterpillar. This will be perfect. So here we go. So now I have a caterpillar and an emoji. And maybe we want to have a story like one day the main character decided to choose a pet. Did he want to choose a turkey or did he want to choose a caterpillar? So now what I can do is if I go back in and I edit my text, and I'm just double tapping so I can select it, see where it says link? Now I could have this turkey, I could link to an article all about turkeys, or if I was creating this choose your own adventure story, I might say that I want to link to, page number 3. And so I can say done and done. And then if I had my caterpillar, we'll do the same thing, and we'll select our caterpillar, and we're going to have our caterpillar, link to page 2. Oops, pull down 2. So now if I go back to my books and I publish my book online, so go ahead and publish it, and we'll call it, adventure, just for fun, I'll be able to actually see how it's worked. So I'm going to say done, and now I can open my globe to view it online. And here's my adventure book. And I can scroll past all the things I already did. And now if I wanted to test it out, if I tap on my turkey, it goes back to that page. And if I tap on my caterpillar, So now, I mean, I realize this isn't a very exciting book because we only did 2 examples, but you get the idea. So imagine if students had to craft out the logic of an application or program, and this could be telling their own choose your adventure story. You could take a short story or a novel or part of a book that you might already be reading in a literature class and have students come up with an alternative pathway. From a history perspective, students might take an event in history and then change the decision making that particular historical figures might have actually gone through and lay out what could have happened instead. With a science or a math problem, what would happen if things had not evolved as intended? What if you took a different problem solving strategy? What if you changed a hypothesis? And now we can think about how to introduce these ideas of thinking and code and this computational thinking, and we can put it into any curriculum.